So, new Star Wars film coming out, you know what that means. Angry hate comments, loud rantings, video essays deconstructing the various meanings behind the movie that may or may not have been intended by the creators, and a smattering of rewrite videos. And out of all of my options, I've decided to go for the latter. Now let me just prefix this before going any further. I don't actually hate the new Star Wars Trilogy, nor do I have an especially strong love for it. I'm less excited or angered by the glut of Star Wars films that we've been getting for the last few years, as I am just exhausted by it. Looking back on it, making sequels to the original trilogy in the first place was probably a huge mistake, much in the same way that making prequels to the original trilogy was probably a huge mistake. But if you put the task on me to write my own idea of how the sequel trilogy should have gone, here is my little hot take. And I'm not going to be going over a scene-for-scene description of my rewrites. I'll go into more detail with some scenes that need it, but for the most part, I'm just going to keep to the main talking points. The main changes that I would make movie by movie and fill in the blanks that need to be filled in. And one more thing, from this point on, I'm just going to assume that you've seen Force Awakens and Last Jedi, so if you're confused by some of the comments that I make, it's probably because I'm referencing something in the original films, in which case it's your own fault for not watching them before clicking on this video. You have been warned. With that being said, let's begin. One of the main problems as far as story structure goes is the seeming lack of direction that the new trilogy has. Many plot points that are set up in Force Awakens receive little attention or are just forgotten about entirely in Last Jedi. There are a lot of possibilities as to why this was the case, whether because J.J. Abrams left after directing the first film, or Disney perhaps had too much influence in production. What's important is how this affected the structure of the new trilogy. And while there are still plenty of positives about the films, in my opinion anyway, there's no denying that it's been more than a little messy. But this didn't need to be the case. As far as I can see, there's only one major change you would have to make to Force Awakens that would improve the storytelling structure of the whole trilogy. Well, okay, that's a lie. There's several things that I would change, but the main correction I would make is, quite simply, don't blow up Starkiller Base. That was the decision which baffled me the most in Force Awakens. Why did they blow up the big evil galaxy-destroying death machine in the first movie? That is the main source of tension and conflict that you could have in this trilogy. That's the biggest thing they could go up against, and you get rid of it in the first installment? Why not draw it out a little bit more? Keep it for a couple of films instead of just getting rid of the single greatest threat to your galactic republic in the span of one movie. Imagine this, instead of having Force Awakens revolve around some new rebellion trying to blow up yet another superweapon in their fight against another evil empire, you start a little bit earlier than that. The two things Force Awakens should have focused on, in my opinion, are 1, the search for Luke Skywalker, and 2, the rise of the First Order. Those are two simple but solid foundations for a Star Wars story, one which we see from the perspective of the new characters, these being a fledgling Force user, a conflicted servant of the dark side, a turncoat stormtrooper, and a pilot of the Republic who eventually ends up working for the rebellion. At the beginning, we see that the New Republic is going pretty well and smooth. Yeah, none of that resistance nonsense that didn't make any sense in Force Awakens. I mean, why would you have a resistance movement when the Galactic Republic is still in power? That makes no sense. So yeah, no resistance. The New Galactic Republic, they're the ones that are still in charge. Maybe you could have Leia acting as ambassador in the Senate, sort of what Padme should have been in the prequels. But while she's doing her best to keep the Republic together, a faction is beginning to form within the Senate, made up of planets and systems who are feeling exposed and underrepresented by the central government. Maybe you could have Leia butting heads with representatives who are secretly working for the First Order. In a sense, you could see this as the politics of the prequels, but, you know, interesting. This could also be a chance to see the inner workings of the First Order, who at this stage are kind of their own little rebellion. They aren't in power yet, they're just trying to grab whatever power that they can. We can establish the First Order's leader, Supreme Leader Snoke, as well as a Dark Council whom he has assigned to do his will. Maybe Hux could work as an ambassador on the Dark Council's behalf, relaying orders to his fleet and to Kylo Ren and to Captain Phasma as per the Dark Council's wishes. But more on that later. while we're setting up the New Republic and the First Order, we get introduced to Poe, a pilot for the Republic who's assigned to safeguard Leia's ships as she conducts her business. In the meantime, we also get introduced to Finn, a stormtrooper who's feeling somewhat conflicted after his first mission, that being the mass killing of a small village as Kylo Ren searches for clues as to Luke Skywalker's whereabouts. Maybe we could get a couple of flashbacks to Finn's upbringing in the First Order, seeing the brutal training that he underwent at the hands of Captain Phasma, thereby forging a real enmity between the two. You set Phasma up as Finn's primary abuser and the main obstacle that he has to overcome as a character, so we can see some payoff later on down the line. But moving on, while the First Order is rising, Kylo Ren is hunting his former master, Luke Skywalker, under the orders of Supreme Leader Snoke. He slaughters a whole village of innocent people, which Finn attends but refuses to participate in, to get a hold of potential coordinates to Luke's location. And of course he's frustrated when all he's able to find is a small fragment of what he needs, and his search has to go on. Then we get our introduction to Rey. Now, Rey's character has drawn a lot of controversy and division among the Star Wars fanbase, with her being called a Mary Sue and a flat heroine, and who never has to actually work or suffer for her power, and to a certain extent I do kinda see those points. But I think a way to fix this would be to add a few elements from another female character who has also drawn a lot of pushback from the fans, that being Rose from Last Jedi. Now personally, again, I didn't have much of a problem with Rose except for the fact that it didn't seem like the writers had a good idea of what to do with her, so why not combine her and Rey's characters together, thereby giving our main hero more of a personality. Picture this, Rey is living on Jakku. Her intro can pretty much be the same as it is in the original Force Awakens, except with one major difference. She has an older sister who wants to be a pilot for the Republic. Sound familiar? We could spend a bit of time seeing the bond between these characters, getting us attached to them and seeing their personalities shine. Maybe Rey's a bit introverted, not very sociable. All she wants is to keep her head down, work hard, and earn enough credits to get off of this miserable desert planet. Her sister, meanwhile, is full of ambition, she's really upbeat and hopeful, she wants nothing more than to earn her stripes and join the Republic. Maybe she could own a little droid called BB-8, who likewise wants to help pilot a ship like a lot of other droids do. Though perhaps maybe he's still a little bit too faulty to be all that effective. Maybe Rey's sister could idolize the Jedi. Maybe she used to tell Rey stories of Luke Skywalker overthrowing the Empire as a bedtime tale when they were younger. That could make for a pretty neat flashback. But moving on with Rey's introduction, during a normal workday, word reaches their settlement on Jakku that a Star Destroyer is in orbit, and the few Republic soldiers on the planet take flight in their ships in order to bring them down. Rey's sister takes her chance and flies off with them, even though Rey begs her to stay with her in BB-8 where it's safe. Meanwhile, on Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer, which is the ship that's in orbit, Finn is interrogated by Phasma as to why he didn't kill the villagers down on the planet's surface with the other stormtroopers. The interrogation is cut short, however, as the ship comes under attack from the Republic freighters. In the chaos, Finn escapes his cell, he takes a pod down to the planet's surface, while stealing the fragmented map to Luke's coordinates in the process. However, he is quickly shot down in the fray and crashes back down on Jakku. The skirmish continues above the planet, and the Republic pilots are wiped out by the First Order, Rey's sister among them. This battle could serve several very crucial points in the plot. Firstly, it makes Finn an active participant in the story. He's escaped the First Order, he's in the thick of it now, just like the rest of our cast. Secondly, it establishes a key motivation for Rey. The loss of her sister, who was an ardent supporter of the Republic, sets into motion a desire for her to get back at the First Order. As we know, she is a Force user. Maybe we could set this up a little bit earlier with a scene of her unconsciously using the Force to calm an angry desert beast or something like that. With a motivation for revenge firmly in place, Rey has two potential roads to travel, the light side or the dark side. The loss of her sister establishes her upcoming character journey all in one. Thirdly, the Battle over Jakku gives us a sense that out on the fringes of the galaxy, the government's support is thin at best, and the most that any of the natives can hope for is to defend themselves from threats like the First Order with any means at their disposal. We're seeing just how easy it is for the First Order to swoop in and swallow up Outer Rim planets, giving us a sense of the New Republic's shaky political structure. While it looks ideal and pretty in the core worlds like Coruscant, it's not so simple on the outskirts. No wonder some some planets don't like the New Republic all that much. But moving on from that, we then cut to Leia and Poe. They could have just gotten done fending off an attack from some of the First Order ships. Maybe Poe saved Leia's life at great personal risk, and Leia appoints Poe to her personal fighter pilots as a reward. This can also be the point where the characters see the real threat that the First Order poses. They aren't just going after Outer Rim worlds anymore, they're attacking influential figures in the Senate like Leia. Poe asks her why she doesn't contact Luke, and she reveals that she has been trying. Luke doesn't want to be found because of some grave mistake that he made, a mistake which put him at odds with his sister. But then back on Jakku, Finn makes his way from his wrecked escape pod into Rey's town, which is now under occupation by the First Order. He then runs into Rey and BB-8, who are looking for a way off the planet to go and join the Republic. Their interests end up aligning, and they escape a squad of stormtroopers on a ship that we recognize as the Millennium Falcon. During the incursion, Rey demonstrates her experience with ship mechanics, and Finn showcases a suspicious knowledge of the stormtroopers' tactics and maneuvers. After the incursion, Rey confronts him about this, and he confesses that he used to be a stormtrooper and that he's looking for a way to join the Republic, using the coordinates that he stole from them as leverage. Quickly forgiving his deception, Rey takes the helm of the Millennium Falcon and they fly headlong into a huge freighter which ends up snatching them up. We then cut over to Kylo Ren as his Star Destroyer arrives at a large unidentified snow planet to meet with his superiors. We could maybe get some back and forths between him and General Hux. Neither of them really get along and both have wildly different approaches to taking over the galaxy. One scene I thought would be kind of cool to add would be to show Kylo Ren and Hux on their way to talk to Supreme Leader Snoke, and Hux insults Ren to the point that he grips him in a force choke. But Hux doesn't seem all that bothered. He's got such a cool, disciplined, psychopathic mind that he's unfazed by Ren's attempts to hurt or intimidate him. Kylo Ren could kill him at any time. Hux knows this, but he also knows that he won't, leading to a frustrating impasse for Ren. This is when we start to see Kylo Ren's motivations seeping through here. He is of the firm conviction that the ways of the light side, of Luke Skywalker's side, that being mercy, compassion, peace, they are lies which the Jedi peddled in order to keep the strong docile and tamed. He's always wanted to reach his fullest potential, and thanks to encouragement from the First Order and Supreme Leader Snoke, he feels that the dark side is the surest road to achieve it. Hux could also make mention of other fanatics, as he calls them, who adhere to the same teachings as Kylo Ren. We don't see these guys in this movie because we don't really need to at this point. All we know is that they are part of the same order as Kylo Ren and that they helped him commit an act of barbarism against Luke Skywalker. But at any rate, Kylo Ren and Hux then meet with a hologram of Snoke, who orders Kylo Ren to find the remaining coordinates to Luke Skywalker as he poses the greatest threat to the First Order's expansion. We could also maybe get a scene where a representative from the New Republic, one of the people that was butting heads with Leia earlier, meets with them and Snoke to reveal what the Senate is doing, kind of going behind Leia and the rest of the Republic Senate's back. Then over with Finn, Rey, and BB-8, they find that the freighter that snagged them up is being manned by none other than Han Solo and Chewbacca themselves. Then we get that whole different gangs coming after them and the big tentacle squid monsters snatching the guys up and all that. That can stay more or less the same as it is in the original movie. Then after they escape on the Falcon, Han could then relay a bit of backstory about his son doing something bad and joining the First Order, and Luke going into exile after the altercation out of shame. He doesn't say much else, but Rey is suspicious and subconsciously using her force powers to guess that Han is hiding something. And if you have seen the new trilogy, you know what it is that he's hiding. This could be a potentially huge point to develop Han's character. I mean, this is the lowest we have ever seen him. He feels like a complete and total failure. He failed as a father to Kylo Ren. He failed as a husband to Leia. He failed as a friend to Luke. He failed as an ally of the New Republic. All he's got left is his smuggling abilities. This is essentially his midlife crisis. He's gone back to what he knows. And it's thanks to Finn and Rey that he snaps out of it and goes with them to aid the Republic once again. Or at least get them to a place where they can aid the Republic. He's still got a ways to go before he's ready to do the properly right thing once again. So the 5 of them then go to a planet called Takodana and meet with Maz Kanata, a pirate queen, as Han heard a rumor that she has one of the missing pieces of the map to Luke's location. After some convincing, Maz eventually gives it to them, and Rey, guided by the Force, discovers that Maz also has possession of Luke's lightsaber. Yeah, Luke's, not Anakin's old lightsaber which, fell down a massive shaft in a city suspended in clouds on another planet God knows how many light years away. Not that, Luke's green lightsaber, the one we saw in Return of the Jedi, that one. And Maz reveals that Luke gave her the lightsaber along with the fragmented coordinates to his location, and she also tells Rey the story of how Kylo Ren turned to the dark side. In an effort to re-establish the Jedi Order, Luke searched the galaxy for young Force sensitives and offered to teach them the ways of the light side. However, one of these Force sensitives showed a greater affinity for the Force than the others, and I'm sure you can guess who that was. Hearing of the rise of the First Order and hungering for the untapped potential of the dark side, Kylo Ren betrayed Luke, recruited several of the other students to his cause, and slaughtered those that didn't join him. This could make for a pretty cool flashback, but I think it would be best to maybe not show everything, or we get our little snippets as to what happened, but we don't know the full story yet. Ashamed of his apparent failure, Luke fled the core worlds, leaving the map to his locations scattered throughout the galaxy so no one person could find him. But of course, we and Rey ask, why did he leave any coordinates behind at all? Why not just destroy any trace of where he's gone? More on that later. Maz gives Rey Luke's lightsaber, saying that its fate and hers are tied together, and Rey tells Finn what she's discovered. The two then angrily confront Han on why he didn't tell them this whole thing, and Han reveals that Kylo Ren is his son, Ben Solo, which Rey had already kind of put together. It wouldn't be a huge twist by any stretch, but this would still be a better time to show it in the story and reveal a bit more of Han's shame. But moving on, with Rey and Finn's encouragement, Han finally swallows his pride and sends a holo message to Leia, relaying everything that's happened. They also let slip that they have 2 of the map fragments to Luke's location, and Leia reveals that she has the 3rd and final piece. All they need to do is get the 3 pieces together, and they then know where Luke is. Unbeknownst to them, however, Kylo Ren is listening into their conversation from his Star Destroyer and now knows exactly what he has to do in order to win. Leia meanwhile orders Poe to head to Takodana to retrieve Han, Finn and Rey along with the map fragments, and he obliges. But before they can get there, Kylo Ren arrives on his Star Destroyer and attacks with Captain Phasma, who is leading her troops. Maz and her criminal buddies defend the area with Han, Chewbacca, Rey and Finn's help, and Kylo Ren then shows up in person, intent on retrieving the coordinates. And in the process, he also discovers Rey, who he senses is also connected to the Force. On top of getting the coordinates, he also takes the opportunity to knock out Rey and bring her back to Supreme Leader Snoke. The First Order then make their exit, having gotten what they needed, just as Poe's New Republic forces arrive. Finn, Han, Chewbacca and BB-8 then go with Poe in order to meet with Leia in Coruscant, where tensions are only rising higher. Several of the representatives in the Senate are expressing dismay at the New Republic's handling of the First Order situation, with many suggesting that they just take the easy route and enter into negotiations with the enemy. There are also talks that the First Order have developed a new super weapon to rival the Death Star, but Leia dismisses the notion out of hand, though many of them remain unconvinced. Then our heroes arrive, tell her what's been going on. The First Order now not only have Rey, but the 2 final coordinates to Luke's location. They'll surely be coming to get the 3rd piece soon enough. Forming a plan of action, Leia orders Poe to take Finn, Han and BB-8 to the mysterious snow planet that Kylo Ren keeps traveling to in order to save Rey, retrieve the map pieces, and hopefully capture Kylo Ren and bring him back to Coruscant alive. I mean, he is Leia's son after all. In the meantime, Leia also orders her Grand Admiral, a certain memeable amphibian, whom we all know and love, to mobilize the Republic forces to defend Coruscant and the other core planets from the First Order's imminent attack, while she remains on Coruscant with the coordinates and the other representatives where it's safe behind a planet-wide defense shield. And thus we head into the 3rd and final act. As Han, Finn, Poe, Chewbacca and BB-8 go on their mission to the snow planet, Kylo Ren is busy interrogating Rey and learning about her past. She demonstrates a greater aptitude in the Force than Ren initially realized, instinctively resisting his attempts to read her mind and perhaps even dabbling into the dark side a bit herself when he unknowingly conjures up the memories of her dead sister. Then our heroes arrive on the snow planet, entering the First Order base covertly as they know that they can't hope to win a full-on space battle against the First Order's best troops. We could maybe get a bit more character development here. Maybe Poe doesn't trust Finn so much as he's a former stormtrooper. Maybe he's being a bit antagonistic and confrontational, leading to some tension between the two, but their enmity is quickly put aside in favor of the mission at hand. They sneak into the First Order base and begin to grow anxious at what they're seeing. It's almost as if the base and the planet itself are connected somehow. Han and Poe ask Finn about the nature of the planet, but his answers seem kind of vague and uncertain. Even he doesn't know what the planet is exactly, and he doesn't actually know why he doesn't know. I mean, he's a former stormtrooper, he should know this stuff, right? Meanwhile, back on Coruscant, Leia and Akbar are wondering why the First Order's troops haven't shown up yet, and then they realize far too late that they have been tricked. The representatives in the Senate who were secretly working for the First Order have allowed several sleeper agents onto the planet. They then proceed to deactivate the shield covering the world, sending the Republic troops into a panic just as the First Order's forces arrive. They then attack Akbar's fleet while the sleepers down on Coruscant continue with their mission to hunt down and kill Leia. This is the point where we get a big bomb dropped in our laps. The First Order soldiers aren't just trained from when they are children onwards, but they are also implanted with chips, allowing them to be manually controlled by their superiors if/when needed. They can be embedded behind enemy lines, put up fronts, create false identities which can be wiped away with the push of a button, and that means... oh shit. Back on the snow planet, our heroes get discovered by Captain Phasma and General Hux just as they are helping Rey bust out. With one code word spoken, Finn suddenly turns on his allies and aims his blaster at them like the other surrounding stormtroopers. Yeah, kind of a dark turn this, huh? Everything Finn went through, escaping the First Order with Luke's coordinates, seeking out the Republic, communicating with Princess Leia, it was all a manipulation by the First Order, a set of pre-assigned subliminal commands embedded by Phasma for Finn to find the final remaining map pieces to Luke Skywalker's location without even realizing what he was doing. It was all a big chess game, and he was just another pawn to them. Doesn't that suddenly make Phasma and Hux 1,000 times more interesting, 1,000 times scarier, 1,000 times more relevant than they were in Force Awakens or Last Jedi? So yeah, the upshot of this is that the bad guys have our heroes surrounded, all hope seems lost. Hux is talking about how their latest innovation will mark the final definitive end of the Republic.
He starts monologuing.
And Phasma orders Finn to kill the intruders. Prove your loyalty, she says. But Finn, of course, hesitates, beginning to resist the programming that he has had since he was a child, quite painfully I might add. And that is where Rey comes in. Having demonstrated her mind powers on Kylo Ren beforehand, we see her begin to do something similar to Finn, mentally helping him to overcome the chip that's embedded in his brain. Finally, after one last great effort, Finn overpowers his conditioning and turns the blaster back around to Phasma. He then fires at a column hanging above the gathering, which causes it to fall down and crash on the ground, creating mayhem. Our heroes then run away in the chaos and begin to make their way out of Starkiller base. Meanwhile, back on Coruscant, Leia attempts to flee from the First Order soldiers that are hunting her down with her personal guard in tow. They're caught in a Senate building, everything's in disarray, she doesn't know who to trust, where to go, and then she hears a little voice appearing in her head. A voice that she and the audience are all too familiar. Luke. With her brother's guidance, she successfully escapes the First Order soldiers, maybe even using the Force on them a couple of times herself, and then she makes her way out of the Senate building to safety. Meanwhile, back on the snow planet, our heroes are making their escape. They're trying to evade the First Order soldiers as they make their way back to the Millennium Falcon. Then, just as they are in the home stretch and night begins to fall, they're almost at the Falcon, they're almost ready to get out of there, Kylo Ren is there waiting for them. Rey then ignites Luke's lightsaber and tries to fight him, with Finn and Poe acting as backup with blaster fire. But despite their best efforts, they are ultimately beaten due to the fact that Kylo Ren just has greater command of the dark side and has more experience in swordplay than any of them do. Kylo Ren then goes in for the killing blow on Rey, but then is stopped by Han Solo calling out to him. He comes closer, begging his son to take off the mask and come home to Coruscant where he belongs. Then, as she comes to, Rey hears a familiar voice in her head, just as Leia did. Luke mentally communes with her, and, heeding his words, she helps her wounded friends get onto the Millennium Falcon while Han and his son are sharing a tender moment. And I'm pretty sure you can see where this is going. Seizing his chance to submit fully to the dark side, Kylo Ren stabs Han with his lightsaber, killing him instantly as the others watch, horrified from the Falcon. As the tragedy takes place and Han slumps over, dead in the snow, both Rey and Chewbacca pretty much share the same reaction. Chewie immediately opens fire on Kylo Ren, who is still recovering from the act of killing his father. He's taken aback, he barely deflects the shot, and then Rey, overcome with rage and grief, lets loose a primal scream of force energy which blasts Kylo Ren back and begins to wreck the surrounding environment. Poe tries to get the Falcon back into the air so that they can escape the planet, but Rey's destructive power is unknowingly preventing them from taking off. Finn calls out to her, trying to pull her back to the moment as she lets loose wave after wave of psychic energy on Kylo Ren, who is trying his damnedest to fight back. Then, as Luke continues to speak in her mind, she finally comes to her senses and stops. The heroes then escape, leaving the snow planet and Kylo Ren firmly in the dust. They make it back to Coruscant as the First Order is retreating, and they go to meet with Leia, who felt Han's death through the Force. The representatives who aided the First Order, the ones who didn't escape when they had the chance, are imprisoned, and Rey presents the final coordinates to Leia. With the map assembled, they find that Luke is on a planet out in the unknown regions, right on the very edge of the galaxy, and Leia tells Rey to go there in order to learn the ways of the Force. But then, before leaving, Rey asks Leia why Luke ran away in the first place, why he left the pieces of the map scattered throughout the galaxy. Leia responds by telling her what Luke said to her before going into exile. He was waiting for the right person to find the pieces. Somebody as strong in the Force as Luke had once been, someone as strong in the light side as Kylo Ren is in the dark. Bidding a touching farewell to Finn, Rey promises to return and goes with Chewbacca on the Millennium Falcon to Luke's location. As Finn, Poe, and Leia meet with the other Republic commanders and Senate leaders, Finn informs them that he has remembered something. The chip in his head that Rey helped him overcome was preventing him from accessing certain information pertinent to the First Order, but now that it's been short-circuited, he remembers what that mysterious snow planet was. We then cut to Kylo Ren, still recovering from his wounds after Rey's sudden show of power in the Force, as he and Hux meet with Supreme Leader Snoke. Snoke's hologram tells them that the time for secrecy is now over. The New Republic is ready to fall. It's time that they felt the full power of the First Order for the first and last time. Starkiller Base is ready. We then get a big shot of the vast First Order fleet circling around the world, and we see as the planet is rotating around, as it's spinning, we see a massive cannon emerging from the inside of the planet. And that's the point that we realize this is no planet, it's a weapon. A weapon that's even greater and more terrible than the Death Star, Starkiller Base. See what I meant when I said that it was a mistake to destroy Starkiller Base so quickly? Doesn't this make for an absolutely incredible cliffhanger to end a film on? We don't know the full extent of this weapon's capacity. We don't know exactly what it's going to do. All we know is that it's bigger, a lot bigger than the Death Star, and the First Order have the manpower and military might to defend it. Wouldn't that have just been amazing to see on the big screen? But just wrapping this movie up, I'd end it pretty much where the initial film did. Maybe there are some ruins on the little island planet that Rey lands on, some remnants of an old civilization that we don't know anything about yet. She makes her way up the island, finds Luke on a cliffside looking out over the island ruins. Luking out. I'll go kill myself now. He turns to face her, she pulls out his old lightsaber, and then it just cuts to credits. And there we have it, my personal rewrite for Force Awakens. I hoped you enjoyed it, even if you're a die-hard fan of the original film. There's a few other things that I would have liked to have mentioned, but I wanted to keep this video as far under an hour as possible, because editing audio and video is an absolute bitch and takes ages. So I hope that what I've said here gives you enough of a clue as to how I would have done this film if it were up to me. And if this rewrite entertained you, stay tuned for my Last Jedi rewrite. That'll be coming out as soon as I've not got an avalanche of college work to get done. Also, for any Game of Thrones fans that might be out there, I've put a couple of links to my personal rewrites of the last few seasons in the description below, so check those out if you have the time. And for all the people commenting asking when I'm going to come up with the next few ones of those, soon is the only answer I can give you. They take forever to finish, okay? Other than that, if there's anything that you wanted to add, any other changes you'd like to make to Force Awakens, leave it in the comments below, hit the like button, subscribe, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.